Hello F11 members, and welcome to the Fundamentals of Post-Production video tutorial for issue 35, December 2014. I'd like to take you through stitching together a vertical panorama shot in the Gorge de Lisson recently in France, and it's to accompany the How It's Done feature in the same issue of this Chasing the Light online magazine. And I basically was in a situation there in a very deep gorge where the only option was to get it all in was to do a vertical panorama. And if I show you these three images here, these are the raw images straight out of the camera, shot using the 17mm tilt and shift lens, with the first frame shot looking up. And if you look at this shot here, the roof of this gorge, which is overhanging, is vertically above me. An incredible sight, really. And then this is the middle shot, looking directly perpendicular with no shift dialed in at all. And then this is the bottom shot with looking down with drop shift, virtually with my feet and the tripod legs almost in the frame. So pretty much almost a 180-degree field of view, and really the only option to get it all in was to use a 17mm tilt and shift lens this way. So let's talk through the post-production of this particular picture. Now let's go back to the middle frame, and normally when I'm doing panoramas, what I do is select the middle frame and make the adjustments that I need for this particular image, and then simply apply them to all the images that are going to be stitched together. But this is a bit of a unique one, because if you look at the top image here, you can see it's bright. I had real problems with contrast from the bright top of the frame down to the darker reaches at the bottom of the image, or the intended image, and so this one is going to need a bit of work to bring back the highlights. But let's start with the middle image, and what I'm going to do with this is quite simple. Start by pulling back the highlights, which here are burning out a little bit. There's no actual clipping, but I'd like to make them darker. So I'm going to pull them back to about 44 there, round about 50, and I'm going to boost the shadows as well, because I've got some clipping, as you can see there, and I'm going to have to go quite heavy on the shadows, round about 50 there. Okay, I'm just going to fine-tune that a little bit. I'm just going to pull the shadows back just a touch, round to about 45 there, and a bit more on the highlights, just to bring that detail in the gorge back to me there. Okay, I'm quite happy with that. It looks a bit flat at this moment, but we'll be dealing with that subsequently in Photoshop. I'm going to add a touch of vibrance around about, because it's flat, I need to add a little bit more than I would do normally, so I'm going to put about 14 in there. I'm going to adjust the sharpening with Sharpen Scenic, and that's it for the middle frame. Okay, now let's go to the top frame here, and let's just go back a second. First of all, go to the middle frame here, and now I'm just going to copy those adjustments, okay, and then go to the top frame, and then if I'm going to paste those adjustments in, and that will be my starting point for this particular frame. Okay, for here I'm going to keep the shadow recovery the same as it was for the middle frame, but I'm going to pull back the highlights even further. I'm going to pull them. I want all this detail coming through here in the face of the limestone gorge. So I'm going to pull it right back to -93. Again, I've got a flat looking image, but you know, we'll live with the sadness. And now go on to no, I'm not finished yet. What I want to do here also with this image is use the grad tool here. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to put a fairly soft gradation in here, pull it down a bit, and pull back the exposure on this to bring back, yeah, that's much better, isn't it? It's giving me much more sort of interest and detail in the top of the gorge arching above me there. Just going to put a touch of contrast onto the grad filter there and click on done. So that's my top frame there, and now we're going to go to the bottom frame. So again, I'm going to paste in those adjustments borrowed from the middle frame, but actually I'm going to pull out all of that highlight recovery, because this image is essentially, this bottom frame is, we're concerned with the shadows, the darker part of the images. So I'm just leaving the +45 on the shadow recovery, and again sharpening's been applied, and that's it. So what I'm going to do now is export them into Photoshop and take it from there. So here we go, library, export, and I'm exporting them as usual as 16-bit TIFFs, full resolution 300 dpi, and I'm asking it to open in Photoshop CC. I've given them a name, Lisson, with the file name, and they've been put in a folder called Jura. Okay, so let's go with that, and I'll come back to you in Photoshop. So here we have the three images open next to each other in Photoshop, and I'm now going to stitch them together the normal way. Just because it's vertical panorama, nothing changes. What is different with this particular image though is that we have these different adjustments applied to the three different images which are going to be stitched together. It will be interesting to see how Photoshop deals with that. So here we go, File, Automate, and Photo Merge. Up comes the dialog. Now normally when doing horizontal conventional panoramas, I suggest using cylindrical, but in this case I'm going to leave it on auto. I go click add open files, we're asking it to blend the images together, and then I simply click on OK, and we let Photoshop do its stuff. Shouldn't be that long because there's only three images to merge, and sure enough it's working on it. So there it is on the left, there's the panorama. So I'm going to close down the other images here, we don't need them anymore. And the first thing I do is look at the merge, and you can just see if you look where the join is of the three layers. If I bring the layers palette in here, you'll see the three different images have been stitched together. Where Photoshop determines to put them together is down to it really. It's clever, isn't it? But it's done a good job. I don't see any kind of discrepancies there. So what I do now is to go to Layer, Flatten Image, and I'm now going to save the picture because we've done a lot of work on it so far, and so we'll do that. I'm going to save as, and I'm going to call it Lisson Pano, Lisson 3250 Pano, and this is V2. Save that. And so I'm going to work on this image now as I would any other. First thing to do is to crop it. So bring the tools selection to selector over here, go to the crop tool. I've got this white bit round the top of the image. I'm just going to zoom in here. Control plus helps me zoom in, and then getting in right mess here. So move up to the top of the frame using the crop tool, just crop that white bit off the top there. Okay, and off the bottom. Just a touch off the bottom there. You can see right at the margins, at the extremes of the shift, the sharpness just starting to drop off, but that's right at the margins of the image, and we're looking at a massive magnification as well, so I'm not particularly concerned about that. Hit enter to confirm that, and zoom back out, and we have these white bits here on the left and the right. I could crop them out, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go control here, and now let's just move this layers out of the way for the moment. I'm going to go to the magic wand and select this area of white there, and now if I just go to edit fill, it should I select the content aware option, it should intelligently fill that in. Well, let's see how it does. It's done it there, so I can go select, deselect, and you can see you would never have known it's there. It's incredible, really, isn't it? Very, very clever. I'm going to do the same. There's a little bit down here actually of mirroring, which I'll tidy up with some cloning just down here if you look really closely. But I'm just going to go back up here and do the same with this white margin there. Click on that with my magic wand, go edit, fill, content aware, and that's done that. Go select, deselect, and now I'm going to zoom out on the image and look at it as a whole and ask myself, what do I want to do with it? It's a little bit flat, isn't it? So let's just take time to consider what the image needs rather than just diving in and doing it. Okay, so I'm going to first of all create a duplicate layer so that my work on this image is not going to be destructive. So there we have, bring this across, there we have the layers tablet. I've got a background layer on top of the background itself. So I'm going to go to lasso tool and just select this area of the gorge here, the brightest part of the gorge, and I'm going to feather that selection, modify feather by 250 pixels in this case. Image adjustments, curves, I'm now going to just put a touch of contrast into that area of the image there, and immediately it gives it a fair bit of more impact. Click on OK, deselect, and now just the bottom part of the image, which is a bit dark and a bit flat as well, I'm going to select that area and again select, modify, feather, 250 pixels, OK, and looking at that now, image adjustments, curves, I'm going to alter the white point there, click on that box, say show clipping, and then move this in, and I can afford to bring my white point a fair bit in before I start clipping, to about there I reckon, and that gives it a little bit, lifts that area a touch I think. And I'm also going to just give it a bit of contrast by altering the tone curve here. It's incredible, isn't it, how refined you can be with all this. Click that on and off, and select, deselect, and I'm pretty much there. In fact, I think this area of the image just needs a touch of contrast, so I'll do the same again. Select, modify, feather, 250 pixels again, image adjustments, I always get that wrong, curves, and again I can afford to adjust my white points and black points just for that area of the image, and it has the effect of enhancing the contrast. Just going to brighten it a touch, and you can carry on doing this ad infinitum, but beware, it's easy to get carried away and go too far. But there you go, that's my vertical panorama of the Le Bief Sarrazin, and there were strange things to do, vertical panoramas, very difficult to display properly, but printed big as a sort of head height print on the wall, they can be very, very effective. So give it a go, and good luck.